orangutans have been, black, but I've got reports of them being even kind of a white or grayish white. And the one thing I look at when I'm, looking into, say somebody's report, is I'll look at it topographically and see what is in that area that would give them that, to give them that color.
Sure.
Because it's all about blending in. The reason why we can't, most time we don't see them or anything is because it's very simple. Really, it's kind of ridiculous. They just don't move and we don't see them. Our eyesight's based on movement. And so if they sit perfectly still and don't move, we'll walk right past them.
Have you studied any or read up any on the highland gorillas in Africa?
Very little.
Because I'm telling you, the amazing thing to me is I discovered that we didn't know they existed till 1902.
Right.
And they're a big animal, and they are family units. And right now, you can go trek in the impenetrable forest where they live in Africa and walk within feet of them and not notice them because their entire lives are eating and sleeping. and outside the little babies, there's not a lot of movement, and they stay in this high brush. So it kind of reminds me of what you're talking about. Except I'm not saying it's gorillas. I don't think there's any gorillas roaming around in Alabama.
No.
I don't think so.
When I first got into this, I was thinking undocumented primate of some sort.
Uh-huh.
Because, just like I said, it wasn't until just recently, I mean, we're talking not too long ago, that they actually discovered the bonobo chimps.
Yes, they're almost, and they're very close to human-like.
They call them billy apes.
Yeah.
And the natives have been talking about them and telling stories about the lion killers. And they sent a team of biologists in, and for a year, these biologists followed this troop around trying to get a photo. And they didn't get but maybe one.
Huh.
And it was a big male. He was, these are chimps that are on average 6.5 foot tall and weigh about 350
They're big,
plus.
yeah.
Size of linebacker, swinging around a tree, But but the reason why I got out of that mindset was because of the fact that there's one thing that a chimp, gorilla, orangutan will never be able to do. They cannot do it. It's impossible for them to do it. They do not have the mechanics to do it, and that is utter a word. They can and all that, but they can't say my name. They can't
so
say.
You're saying that Bigfoot has uttered your name then?
Yes, sir. I've had my name. Yeah, I was sitting at a campfire in North Georgia with 3 other researchers, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting around, getting the fire kind of going, and they're picking at me, and all of a sudden, from behind my tent, which was right at the edge of the woods, from behind my tent, you hear a voice, and it goes, "Paul."
Oh boy!
And I looked at the researcher next to me, and her jaw dropped. And I looked at the one across from me, and she goes, "I heard that." And I said, "Yeah, I did too." But it wasn't saying it because it knew me. It was just mimicking, that word. And see, that's something that an ape can't do. They don't have the vocal cords. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
They cannot. You can teach them sign language all day long, and they won't be able to say stand.
Sure.
And so so that and then when I got also into the Native American aspect of it, I realized that we're dealing with something that's been here for thousands of years. It's actually was here before the Native Americans were here. All the Native American tribes talk about them, and
Right.
and they always refer
You're
to
almost
them as people.
you're almost describing what I'm hearing is almost the missing link.
Yeah,
Well,
I had heard the same thing.
You know, when you say a missing link, that's to say, that we evolved from chimps or gorillas. And I just hate to tell you, I'm not a chimp or gorilla. And
Well, I'm not saying that, but when they
yeah.
when they talk about evolution, I understand they're talking about the apes being our cousins, but anyway, they talk about the missing link, and it's almost what it. They're close to us. Let me put it that way.
Well, obviously there is there's only a couple of chromosomes different, and obviously that's enough to where there is that large of a difference. I like I said, going into this, I'm thinking big screaming monkey, and
So you were at a campsite, and you guys were talking amongst yourself, and the Bigfoot actually picked up words from you guys that y'all were talking like it's saying your name. So they're that intelligent that they can learn to speak our language. I mean, in just a short time. Is that right?
well, I've picked up on audio recordings language of the Cherokee dialect. I've got some recordings where one happens to find my recorder, and when he does, he goes, ooh, wah. And so when I asked the native, Cherokee Indian, what does the ooh, wah, what is that? I played it for them. And they said that's kind of like like oh shit, oh crap, surprise. I've got audio which I'll play at the conference. I'll share with everybody that's there. I've got audio of one that says ma and ya, which the ma is like a question, like what, and the ya is just basically a yes. I've got audio captures of a female that she calls out to her mate, I guess. It's all that I come up with, and it's like she's calling out his name, and he responds. I've had these things will mimic, owls, the barred owl especially. But there's a difference. You can tell if there's a difference. They don't throw the trill in at the end. When an owl, barred owl,
Right.
They won't do that part, and sometimes they don't do it very well either. I've actually had one. He was trying to. I guess it was juvenile. He was trying to do the barred owl, and he got choked up and started coughing. Like I said, I've and there's cases of other places where I've been, in Oklahoma and other places where they've spoken.
So I think I would love to hear one of these Bigfoot speak. That would probably be the highlight of my paranormal existence. And I mean, sure, I'd love to see one, but seeing one and hearing him speak, maybe saying my name or mimicking something that I said, would probably just, I'd have to just dump my bucket list out. I mean, that would be the highlight of everything that I attempt to do. But so I had heard, I had a gentleman on the show, Mr. Jonathan, that he also investigates and researches Bigfoot sightings and that type of thing. And I had asked him, do you think that these big feet people, that you said that they have juveniles as well, so they make up families just generally like we do? You know, you have the man, the woman, the child type thing. I mean, are they related in that fashion?
I've got a footprint that will be also at the conference of a small one. It's about 6 inches long. And, the family unit I'd found, there's large male, and I'd seen him. And the female, I never did see her. I just hear her. And she had a real high pitch, squeaky voice. And the juvenile, I'd seen him multiple times. I mean, he was kind of a prankster and would throw stuff at me, and he would come up on my left side and he'd go, "Hey," and I'd look over my left, and then somehow he'd get around to my right side and he'd do it again. "Hey," and I'd look over, I had crick in my neck after a while from just looking back. Finally, I just stood up and I said, "Now stop it." I said, "That's enough. You get on my nerves." And he did. The smallest one was a female, a little girl. And how I know that is because there's nothing that'll creep you out more than to be sitting in the middle of the woods, 2 miles in the middle of nowhere, and you hear a child giggle. And I'd hear that little girl giggle, and I'd be like, shit, where's she at? And one day I went up to their area and I put out one of them little cheap music boxes that you have to raise the lid up and it starts playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it on a stump that I would gift to them. We would exchange stuff between us. And I put it on that little stump and I didn't know more get sat back down in my chair. And I hear that music box, bling, 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 and then it would stop. And then bling, 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 it'd stop. It was like, she's opening and closing.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, I went up there, and this is the middle of the day. I mean, they're not just nocturnal. I mean, they may. I mean, I don't really know what they are. I know what DNA has stated. I know what I've sent off samples and have them analyzed. I've had hair done. All kind of stuff done, footprint cast, analyzed. And of course, but I'm sitting up on top of a ridge, and the hollow below me, about 100 yards down, is a hollow. And the family group is in that hollow kind of milling around. And I'm sitting there, watching them. And you don't really would see a full, just a full showing. You'd catch glimpses. They're very fast, and you just catch glimpses. Well, all of a sudden, about, I guess, like I said, about 100 yards, there's a stump. This kind of a reddish brown. I thought it was a pine, pine tree. And this stump just all of a sudden out of nowhere appeared, and I thought to myself, I'm gonna dedicate to that stump. I'm not going to take my eyes off of it. So I just sat there and stared at that stump. And it was about probably, maybe from that distance, and like I said, I'm a deer hunter, so I'm guessing it's probably about maybe, 2.5, almost 3 foot, off the ground, as far as tall wise goes. And I'm watching it, and next thing I know, I hear, rocks hitting in the leaves beside me.